Haunted by an unexplained itch, sinister discovery inside elderly man's ear. After 21 weeks, Jenna's heart raced as she clutched the doorway of her father's room. Shadows danced beyond the flickering light of their old lamp, stretching ominously, whispering secrets of dread even in the safety of their suburban home. After 21 weeks of torment, her father Hank had grown quiet, a shell of the animated storyteller he used to be. The mysterious itching in his ear had drawn him into a dark abyss where hope seemed to flicker dimly, almost extinguished. It gnawed at him like a festering wound, a sinister invitation from something lurking just beyond the veil of sanity. Each night when Jenna returned home from the diner, her feet heavy with fatigue and beset by a nagging fear, she felt as though she were walking into a haunted house. The clatter of dishes and laughter from her co-workers felt like a distant memory compared to the unsettling silence that enveloped her father's bedroom. She couldn't shake the feeling that a malevolent presence lurked in the shadows of their neighborhood, feeding on her father's despair. The suburban streets were unremarkable, golden-lit and lined with perfectly mowed lawns except for that odd sense of unease that had settled like a thick fog. She started paying attention to odd whispers from neighbors. Mr. Thompson, the old man 2 doors down, spun tales of creatures slinking into homes through ears, invading the very minds of their victims. Jenna had dismissed it all until she couldn't. After yet another sleepless night, grit and determination carried her to her father. Hank lay there, trembling beneath frail blankets, his face shrouded in shadows. She stood frozen, the whispers of her neighbors echoing in her mind. What if the itch was indeed more than just an itching? What if it was an entry point for something evil? With a surge of despair, she reached out, peering close to his ear. Her breath hitched in her throat. There, nestled inside, was something darker than darkness, a growth pulsating like a coal turned orange in the heart of a fire. Jenna recoiled, her pulse pounding like a war drum. Panic clawed through her thoughts. This was not just a symptom, it was something sinister, an intruder fed by fear. Her hands trembling, she rifled through his things, fueled by desperation and the urgency of a mother bear protecting her cub. Suddenly, an old journal caught her eye, its leather cracked and whispering secrets of the past. Earworm, she read aloud, heart racing. A force that preyed on the weak, thriving off despair. Jenna's blood ran cold as she read deeper. The more she learned, the less safe she felt. The room grew colder, oppressive, the weight of dread settled heavily on her chest. She couldn't shake the knowledge of impending doom lurking beneath their sacred roof. Just then, a loud knock shattered the stillness, making Hank stir. Jenna! Mr. Thompson's voice boomed from outside, laced with an urgency that chilled her to the bone. You need to come out now. It's not safe inside. Paralyzed, Jenna stood at the threshold, her heart racing wildly between two evils. Could she trust Mr. Thompson? Or was he merely another piece in this twisted puzzle? All she knew was that time was running out, and whatever was stalking her father seeped further within the walls of their home. Jenna's breath hitched as she looked from her father to the door. The weight of Mr. Thompson's urgent cries pressed down on her like a lead blanket. What more could be inside? The unknown threat in her father's ear seemed to pulse with a sinister rhythm, taunting her, daring her to choose. Jenna! Come on! Mr. Thompson's voice sliced through the thick air again, fraying her fraught nerves. She took a hesitant step toward the door, compelled by instinct and the urgent feeling of being watched. Then, Hank moaned, disrupting the fragile standstill, his eyes fluttering open. He met her gaze. There was a flicker of something deep within: fear. Recognition. The raging itch stole his strength, leaving him brittle, but she saw him fighting, trying to emerge from the fog. Jenna, he whispered, his voice barely audible, strained. Help, Dad. Panic surged through her veins. Suddenly, she didn't know if it was her father or the thing creeping inside him that was calling for help. Desperation clawed at her chest, she felt paralyzed between love and terror. Footsteps echoed outside. A chilling rustle in the air sent shivers racing down her spine. The door rattled soundlessly, it felt, as if something beyond it was pressing against the wood. She saw Mr. Thompson shift impatiently, his silhouette jagged against the waning light. She was torn. Should she open the door, risk whatever darkness lurked out there, or let it fester within these walls? Sweat beaded on her forehead, fear prickled along her skin. Hank's breath quickened as he struggled, putting a hand to his ear, his expression already turning grim once more. "Get out!" he rasped, a new urgency in his voice. But even as he spoke, Jenna felt a chill creep into the room, a sensation that flickered, cold and gnawing, like ice wrapped around her heart. The shadows shifted, intertwining around her father's bed in a grotesque dance, whispering her name now too. She backed away, eyes darting from her father to the door, uneasily aware the journal lay open behind her, silently revealing deeper horrors. The passage she read earlier echoed in her mind, shaking her resolve. Was it really just a story? Or a warning? "Jenna, please!" Hank cried again, his voice breaking. "You have to listen to me." Then, the door crashed open. Darkness spilled inside like ink. Mr. Thompson staggered in, eyes wide, filled with terror. "You've got to leave now." His voice trembled, the raw panic stirring the air, but Jenna couldn't move. Anxiety rooted her to the spot. The shadows twisted, shapes forming under the dim light, clawing toward her in grotesque, slithering movements. She felt the air grow thick, whispers merged into one continuous, maddening chant that vibrated in her bones. "No. Not again!" she cried, anger and fright fueling her words. But as she turned toward her father for reassurance, her heart dropped. The darkness that enveloped Hank had intensified, his face no longer human but a canvas of raw fear mixing with an inky grotesqueness. He twisted on the bed, clutching at his ear as if trying to rip it away. "Jenna!" His desperate scream shattered her resolve. In that moment, she realized, whatever was in there, it was coming for her too. Fear launched her into action. As she ran toward the door, a writhing mass erupted from the shadows, lunging at her, gripping her ankle with a monstrous force. "Help me!" Hank's voice echoed, breaking through the clamor. The shadowy figure began to pull her back, devouring her scream in an insatiable maw. She clawed at the door frame, gasping. The relentless darkness threatened to envelop her whole. Then, through the chaos, she heard a whispered promise, slithering into her mind. The journal had held the answers, but what would it cost to grasp them? In her heart, the question soared, would she risk everything to save her father and confront the unknown? Then, the shadows twisted again, rising higher. The air thickened around her. And as she braced for the inevitable, the lights flickered, then went out completely, plunging her into an unspeakable void. What had she awakened? What lay beneath her father's faint breaths? With her mind racing, knee-deep in peril, she couldn't help but wonder, would she ever escape this nightmare? Jenna's hands were clammy, her heart a wild drum pounding against her chest. The darkness enveloped her, smothering her like a thick fog. She strained to hear, desperate to catch any sound beyond her own panicked breaths. A low growl rumbled somewhere close. Was it from the shadows? Was it from her father? "Jenna!" The cry broke through the silence, but it wasn't Hank's voice this time. It was Mr. Thompson, the urgency in his tone cutting through the growing dread. "Get out! We have to get away!" She could feel the weight of the darkness pressing against her, unfriendly and alive. Instinct urged her to flee, to escape the menace closing in. But where? The horror that loomed behind her father paralyzed her, as if it had wrapped chains around her legs. She pivoted back to see him again, panic clawing at her throat. "Dad, I don't know what to do." The walls felt as if they were closing in around her, shadows flickering like fingers ready to grab her. "Listen to me. You can stop it. You have to help me." Hank's eyes glinted in the dark, but they were no longer eyes of her father. They were wild and filled with fear, each glance revealing some monstrous truth. Without thinking, Jenna ripped her gaze from him and bolted for the door. She felt the cold on her skin, a prickling suffocation, as the shadows pulsed and churned, trying to swallow her whole. Her heart raced, every step was a chaotically painful struggle against the suffocating grip of the abyss. I can't stay. I can't. Just as she lunged toward the doorframe, something icy wrapped around her arm. She screamed, whipping around to find a spectral hand materializing from the shadows, dragging her back, deeper into the darkness. The grip was unyielding, a surge of cold that surged through her body, a paralyzing fear gripped her heart as she looked back. Dad! Please! Tears stung her eyes. Help me! But there was no answer, only a deepening howl of darkness. The room trembled, vibrated with a sinister energy, climaxing into a freezing stillness that left Jenna breathless. The journal lay nearby, a whispered promise amidst the chaos. Maybe it could save them both, but the words she had read haunted her. Power could come at a terrible price. Did she dare? The inked pages glowed slightly, pulling her in, their secrets begging to be uncovered. Jenna! Mr. Thompson pleaded again. If you don't move now, we're lost. With sheer resolve, she shoved the icy tendril aside, releasing herself just enough to dash for the journal. She could feel the whispers growing stronger, eager to be read again, demanding her attention. In that moment, the darkness shrieked as if in protest, and a vision flashed before her. A glimpse of a sprawling black mass within a piercing white light. Was it a memory or a warning? Come on! Mr. Thompson urged, his silhouette flickering in the shadows. Before it's too late. Jenna grabbed the journal tightly, its spine warm against her palm, and made for the door. But the thing in the shadows was not yet done with her. It surged forward in a chaotic wave, a cacophony of tortured voices echoing through her mind. Just as she reached the threshold, a figure barreled in behind her, Hank, transformed by darkness. His face was a mask of swirling shadows, mouth twisted in a rictus of agony. You can't leave! He screamed. Time froze. Heart racing, Jenna was torn between saving her father and escaping the grasp of the approaching horror. She could feel the journal's weight, a heavy promise of salvation or doom. Jenna! He howled again, desperation lacing his voice, urging her to make a choice, but as the shadows lunged at her, tendrils of despair reaching, clawing, her mind echoed with a single question: would the revelation within the journal be the key to saving them, or the final nail in their coffin? With the chaos around her intensifying, Jenna tightened her grip on the journal, the choice becoming agonizingly clear. She had to decide, and quickly, before the darkness claimed them both. What awaited her in the pages? Was it the truth she desperately needed, or just another layer of horror waiting to swallow her whole? Jenna's heart seized as she faced the horrifying choice. The shadows roared, an orchestra of despair threatening to drown her. Her father's voice, once a source of comfort, now echoed with a twisted urgency, begging her to choose. Run! Mr. Thompson's shout pierced through, breaking her trance. We can't let it take us. But the weight of Hank's monstrous form loomed larger, eclipsing hope. The journal pulsed in her grip, an alluring promise mingled with foreboding. She flicked her eyes back to the swirling mass of darkness that enveloped her father. What if I can save him? The thought clawed at her mind, desperate and wild. Could the dark truth within those pages redeem her father, or would it only seal their fate? Go! Mr. Thompson cried again, his voice trembling with panic. It knows you're hesitating. Jenna felt the icy tendrils of darkness creeping closer, like hungry snakes ready to consume her. The journal felt hotter now, almost burning in her grip, as if it had its own consciousness. A whisper slipped through her lips, almost involuntarily. I will save you, Dad. She turned to the journal, her breath hitching as she opened it. The pages were blank at first, just stark white spaces. No, no. Please. But as she traced a finger over the page, black ink scrawled across the surface, forming words, twisting into shapes she could barely comprehend. To save a soul, one must take a step into the void. The shadows hissed, as if tasting her fear. Jenna's veins chilled. What did it mean? Did she have to step into that darkness? Would it take everything from her, the specter of her father lunged forward, teeth bared in a horrific snarl. "You think that journal can help us? It's just a trap. It will consume you too. Shut up." The command surprised her. Jenna stumbled back, the journal clutched tightly. She could hear it now, a soft hum resonating from the pages, or was it the shadows? A growl erupted around her, and she froze again. Suddenly, a light blazed from the journal, cutting through the suffocating blackness. Jenna squinted against the glowing words, still forming on the page. She could see a map, symbols she didn't understand intertwined with horrifying illustrations of dark entities. To escape the dark, one must summon the light. Jenna. This is madness. Mr. Thompson's voice trembled, panic mingling with the deepening shadows surrounding them. "Stay with me. We can know." She shouted back, an unfamiliar strength brewing within. "I'm not leaving you behind. I will find the light." She felt the journal's energy coursing through her, an electric pulse igniting her resolve. It wasn't just a book, it was a weapon. A roar of defiance erupted from her lips as she plunged her finger down onto the glowing symbol that radiated from the pages. The shadows recoiled as if struck, their grip faltering, but it wasn't enough. More darkness surged, a tidal wave ready to sweep her away. "We have to go." Mr. Thompson screamed, terror etched in his eyes. Jenna turned, breathing heavily. The entryway stretched out, a sliver of hope. She saw the flickering outline of an exit, just beyond the roiling shadows. Could she reach it? Could the journal really guide her to safety? As a sickening roar erupted from the darkness, laced with anguished cries, Jenna faced the decision again. Would the journal provide salvation, or was it leading her directly into a hell of her own making? The air crackled with an energy she couldn't understand. She had to leap now, or risk everything. But even as she turned with the journal clutched tightly, the final howl of anguish filled her ears, pulling at her soul. What awaited her on the other side? Would she find freedom or descend further into darkness? With a desperate determination, Jenna prepared to leap. Jenna soared through the air, her heart racing, fear laced with a flicker of hope. For a moment, everything seemed to slow, the ominous shadows drew back, retreating like unwanted guests. She landed on hard ground, jolted by the impact but immediately aware of the doorway's lingering energy behind her. The world shifted. She stumbled forward, eyes darting around, scanning for Mr. Thompson. But he wasn't there. The doorway had disappeared, swallowed by the darkness as if it had never existed. "Dad! Mr. Thompson!" The panic in her voice echoed into the vast emptiness. Strangely, her surroundings morphed into a twisted landscape, a hostile terrain that pulsed with a life of its own. The ground was soft and treacherous, a mossy carpet in colors that felt too alive. Shadows twisted into grotesque shapes, whispering echoes that crawled under her skin. "Don't look back," she muttered under her breath, heart pounding. She had to move, had to find the light mentioned in the journal. But her feet felt rooted, as if the very earth conspired to keep her there, to prevent her from escaping. The journal in her hands vibrated, responding to her fear or maybe to the encroaching darkness. She opened it again, desperate. The pages flickered, words appearing, cryptic symbols appearing faster than she could read. To summon the light, one must face the terror within. "What does that even mean?" she breathed, her voice barely a whisper. An unbearable weight pressed on her chest. The outlines of figures shifted among the trees and boulders, dark silhouettes watching her with hungry eyes. Jenna could feel their gaze, cold and hungry, sending chills racing down her spine. Bile rose in her throat at the thought of what might happen if she lingered. The darkness wasn't just an absence of light, it was sentient, alive. "Get a grip, Jenna." She scolded herself. Shaking her head, she pressed forward, the journal leading the way as if it had its own will. The air grew thick. A low growl rolled over the landscape. It began as a whisper, rising into a terrifying crescendo. "Come join us, become one with the void." The voices swirled around her, each taunting, each dripping with malice. Jenna's pulse quickened, fear becoming a living thing clawing at her throat. She tightened her grip around the journal, but it felt oddly comforting, its energy grounding her. You can do this. You have to find the light. Ahead, a flicker caught her eye. Pale, wavering light pulsed between the black trees, beckoning. It felt warm, almost intoxicating, a stark contrast to the shadow's chill. Without thinking, she sprinted. As she drew closer, the light formed a doorway, a shimmering veil that promised refuge. But she could hear the shadows rallying behind her, their howls intensifying, crawling closer, hungry for her presence. The journal's light was guiding her, illuminating the ground ahead, but the shadows lunged at her heels. Hurry, Jenna! Before it swallows you! The voice swirled in her head, a mix of insidious laughter and desperate cries. She leapt through the light just as teeth-like claws grazed her back, biting at her courage. A kaleidoscope of colors surrounded her, and Jenna gasped in awe. It felt like falling through a dream. But the moment she hit the ground, the brightness dimmed and revealed an unsettling scene. An endless hall, lined with mirrors reflecting shadows back at her, each darker than the last. At the far end, a figure waited, cloaked in darkness yet somehow familiar. A figure that made her stomach churn. Jenna, it called, a tender, haunting echo of her father's voice. Why did you leave? She froze, staring at the twisted reflection in the glass. It was no longer just a way out, it was a labyrinth, each reflection holding some part of her fears, her past, and maybe a glimpse of her future. Would she find her father here, or was this another trap laid by the darkness? As adrenaline surged, a new realization slammed into her. The shadows were closing in, and the only way out might mean confronting what she feared the most herself. No, Jenna shook her head, desperately, trying to focus. But the shadows crept ever closer, wrapping themselves around her decision like vines threatening to suffocate all hope. What happens when your worst nightmare becomes your only escape? Jenna took a step forward, into the hall of twisted reflections. Jenna stepped into the hall, the air thickening with every beat of her heart. The mirrors loomed on either side, their surfaces shimmering with darkness. She glanced at her reflection, a distorted blend of fear and determination, eyes wide, hair disheveled, every ounce of her vulnerability laid bare. Stay calm, she whispered to herself, but the shadows moved with a life of their own, whispering her name, luring her deeper into the abyss. Each step forward felt heavier, as if the darkness conspired to weigh her down. The voices intensified, a cacophony of tormenting echoes, taunting her with memories best left forgotten. Face your fears, Jenna. You can do this. She shouted, each word breaking the suffocating dread that gripped her throat. The figure at the end of the hall shifted, its shape flickering. It was still familiar, still dangerously comforting. Jenna, the voice echoed again, filling the hall with a haunting melody that wrapped around her heart like barbed wire. Come back to me. I've missed you. She hesitated, fear clawing at her stomach. What if it truly was her father? What if this was the key to escape? The journal pulsed in her hand, its energy surging like a beacon of hope amid the encroaching darkness. Don't listen to it. A voice in her head screamed. But another part of her, a part long suppressed, yearned to believe. She took a tentative step forward, caught in a web of emotions spun tight with love and fear. The reflection shifted again, morphing into scenes from her childhood, her father's laughter, the sound of his voice reading bedtime stories, the safety of his embrace. Each image blurred into grotesque specters, taunting her as they twisted through the glass, showing her the moments she had buried deep. Why did you leave me? He asked again, the shadows thickening, closing in like predators, their fangs glimmering with malice. You don't belong here. Return to me. Stop. Jenna cried, desperate to drown out his words. She felt tears prick her eyes, blurring her vision as she squeezed them shut. The echoes grew louder, drowning her senses. Memories turned sharper, the laughter morphing into sobs, the love into loss. Leave. Get away from me. There was something fierce stirring within her, a primal instinct to fight back. She opened her eyes, locking onto the reflection of her father. The advancing shadows seized her footing, pulling her closer to the edge of despair. With a breath that felt like fire in her lungs, Jenna shouted, "I won't be afraid anymore." The hall trembled. The mirrors shattered with her declaration, shards exploding into a million pieces, scattering like jigsaw puzzles of her life. Each fragment reflected a different version of herself, standing bold and defiant. "Face the terror within," she repeated, recalling the journal's words. It wasn't just about confronting her father, it was about confronting everything. As the shadows reared back, momentarily daunted by her sudden resolve, Jenna took another step forward, approaching the figure. "Show me the truth," she demanded, feeling her own power surging as she approached the flickering silhouette. But as she neared, the figure twisted grotesquely, revealing not her father, but a monstrous reflection of despair, an entity born of shadows, grinning at her with hollow eyes. "No, no!" A piercing scream echoed in the hall, and the jagged mirrors shattered fully, plunging her into darkness. Blackness swallowed her whole as Jenna felt herself falling, the figure's laughter ringing in her ears, promising she would never escape. Then, the sensation shifted. She landed hard against an unyielding floor, breathless and dazed. A new echo greeted her, a chilling whisper. "Welcome to the depths." The surroundings began to materialize around her, forming a sinister chamber filled with unearthly sights. In the corners, shadows writhed like serpents, and Jenna's heart raced. She could see doors, many doors. But which would offer freedom, and which might lead to deeper darkness? Jenna took a sharp breath, sensing the urgency to choose. Her fingers brushed against the journal. Still pulsing in her pocket, guiding her like a compass to salvation, or perhaps doom. But she knew one thing, whatever lay ahead, there was no turning back now. What unearthly truths awaited her in this shadowed chamber? Jenna's breath came in shallow gasps as she surveyed her surroundings. The chamber felt impossibly vast, its walls cloaked in a dark mist that seemed to pulse with malevolence. Each door stood tall and intimidating, each one a potential way forward, or a descent deeper into hell. She stepped toward the nearest door, its surface gleaming with an oily sheen that reflected no light. Her fingers tingled with apprehension as she touched the handle. It felt warm, as if alive, a heartbeat beneath her fingertips. Shadows twisted in the corners like whispers of long-lost souls, each one beckoning her to remember something she would rather forget. "Don't let them in," the voice of the journal echoed in her mind, a warning punctuated by a distant wail that rattled her bones. She pulled back, pulse racing. Must she choose now? Was she even ready? No, she wasn't, but it was time to uncover what lay beneath. With a renewed determination, Jenna turned away from the enticing warmth of the door. Her heart shrank as a chilling realization gripped her. If she didn't act, the darkness would consume her completely. But then she heard it, a soft whimper, like the last breath of a lost child. The sound seemed to seep through the very fabric of the chamber, calling to the deepest parts of her soul. "Help, please!" Jenna's heart stuttered. "Hello?" She dared to call out, her voice trembling. The echoes of her question lingered, dissipating into a suffocating silence that threatened to curl around her throat. The shadows danced closer, eager to consume her hope. "Choose or be chosen," a voice rasped, emerging from the abyss. It was a chorus that felt intimately connected, unnaturally entwined with her own thoughts. "Who is there?" she demanded, her voice stronger now, but she could feel the fear clawing at her edges, threatening to unravel her. The shadows thickened, swirling around her as she moved further into the chamber. Suddenly, a flickering light caught her attention, emanating from a door at the far end. Light? After the oppressive twilight? But with it came a distinct sense of dread. What if it was a trap? "Maybe it's a way out," she said softly, glancing at the other doors lined along the walls. Their surfaces seemed to close in, smug with the secrets they held, a malevolence she could almost taste in the air. Jenna steeled herself, stepping toward the glowing door, her feet dragging against the cold, hard floor. Each step felt like a weight on her shoulders. The closer she got, the louder the whimpering became, intensifying into a gut-wrenching sob. "What do you want from me?" she shouted, halting abruptly. The shadows shifted, murmuring like a churning storm. They seemed to conspire, dragging her thoughts deeper, wrapping her in uncertainty. Then, in the midst of the turmoil, a cry tore through the thrall, rising above the whispers. "Help me! You're my only hope." It was a voice she recognized, the voice of her little brother, Tommy. Panic exploded in her veins, a rush like electric horror. Shoving down the fear, Jenna sprinted towards the glowing door, yanking it open without hesitation. As she stumbled through, the light engulfed her. For a brief moment, she felt warmth, comfort washing over her like a fleeting embrace. But when her eyes focused, the horror she found before her was monumental. Tommy stood in the center of the room, but something was wrong. His eyes were sunken, darkness twisted around him like a sinister shroud. "Jenna, help!" He cried, but the words felt hollow, empty. Jenna's heart shattered. Every instinct screamed that this wasn't right. This wasn't her brother. The shadows coiled tighter around her, wrapping her in an icy grip of despair. "Don't get too close." She stopped herself, muscles rigid as she fought the impulse to reach out to him. Then, beneath the surface of her brother's eyes, Jenna saw it, the same abyss she had faced in the hallway, the same grim darkness. "Why are you doing this?" she yelled, her voice breaking, desperation clawing at her throat. The shadows twisted, merging into the hollow spaces around Tommy. And amidst the chaos, a new voice emerged, low and thunderous. "Because his fear is your fear, Jenna. You cannot escape that which you are." Another door shuttered behind her, vibrating with potential horrors. The weight of choice pressed heavily on her chest, one door holding her brother, perhaps salvation, the other, an unveiling of what lay deep within herself. The choice felt monumental. A single decision could lead to emancipation or devastation. Which door would she take? Jenna's mind raced, and as her heart thundered against her ribs, a chilling thought slithered through: was she truly prepared to face what lingered on the other side? Time seemed to freeze, and the shadows waited eagerly for her choice. What truth would awaken once she stepped through? The shadows lurked, poised to spring, as Jenna's fingers danced helplessly between the two doors. Her stomach churned. One choice led to a salvation wrapped in darkness, and the other promised a blinding revelation, shrouded in terror. Could she trust her instincts? "Make a decision, Jenna." The commanding voice thundered again, shaking the very walls around her. Panic tightened around her throat, drowning her thoughts in muffled screams of dread, but her heart, it had already leaped in the direction of the door holding Tommy. She fought the pull of its sickly promise. "No!" she cried, her voice shrill, sharp against the encroaching darkness. "You're not my brother." Tommy's face twisted, morphing into something far more sinister, the shadows creeping ever closer. "Jenna," his voice hissed, dripping with malice. "You know you can't resist saving me. You love me." But the love she felt was suddenly heavy, laden with the weight of a truth she didn't want to acknowledge. The very air quaked with expectation, the kind that gnawed at her insides, unraveling her resolve. Behind her, the other door thrummed like a heartbeat, enticing yet terrifying. What awaited on that side? Was it another version of the hollow-eyed shell that stood before her, or could it truly set her free from the shackles of her own darkness? "Choose or be chosen," came the echoing whispers. The shadows surged forward, pulling her toward the grotesque image of Tommy. She could almost feel their icy fingers grasping at her waist, but fear surged within her. "No!" A primal scream erupted from her, erupting from a place deep within. "I want to let you take me." With each syllable she uttered, the oppressive weight of despair lightened. For a fleeting second, clarity shone through the murky haze. Eyes narrowing, Jenna faced the other door. She could see a faint light seeping through the cracks, dancing on the ground at her feet. This door felt different. Was it a beacon of hope or a deceptive trap? "Tommy, I'm sorry. I can't help you." Jenna's body quaked, yet she turned from the darkness. Heart pounding like a war drum, she rushed toward the light. She could almost hear it calling her name, each pulse igniting a flicker of hope in her chest. Just as she reached for the handle, a scream split the air behind her, dark, raw, a despairing cry that ricocheted off the stone walls. "Jenna! You're making a mistake." The voice was her brother's again, but it twisted, contorted with fear and despair. Every ounce of her wanted to look back, wanted to understand what she was leaving behind. "Don't listen." The shadows hissed, now swirling violently around her, a tempest of rage and sorrow. The air seemed to thicken, harder to breathe as the darkness retaliated against her defiance. With trembling fingers, Jenna gripped the cold handle. It felt different, electric. She could sense it pulsing beneath her touch, responding to her fear, yet also igniting a flicker of courage. "Just go." A voice, steady and clear, echoed in her mind. Was it her own? The shadows lunged forward, an anguished roar that shook the very foundation of her reality. "You will regret this choice," they cried, a cacophony of panic and urgency. The door shuddered as Jenna forced it open. Light burst forth, blinding and pure, flooding her senses. She stepped through, heart racing, and felt the shadows clawing at her, desperate to pull her back. What lay in the light was an expanse she couldn't fully comprehend, an endless labyrinth of memories, secrets, and unspeakable horrors. Each step she took felt like standing at the edge of an abyss, deeper and darker than anything she had ever faced before. The door slammed shut with a finality that echoed in her mind. Would this truly lead to her brother? Or had she trapped herself in an even worse hell? A distant wail twisted through the air, Tommy's voice, hauntingly close yet forever out of reach. "Jenna," it whimpered, laced with sorrow. "Help please." Jenna clenched her fists, determination anchoring her resolve. Where was she now? What awaited her in this new hell? And then, something shifted in the shadows beyond the light. A figure flitted just out of her sight, small, and in the darkness. "Who is there?" she called out, every fiber of her being on high alert. The figure paused, and its head tilted as if it was listening. Then it vanished into the swirling mist, leaving only a lingering chill. Had she escaped one horror only to find another? The chamber held its breath, secrets waiting to crawl from the shadows once again. What other horrors lay in wait? The air thickened with a tangible dread. Jenna stood in the blinding light, heart racing, hands trembling at her sides. Shadows curled like smoke just out of her view, whispering incoherent promises. A chill skittered up her spine as she edged cautiously forward, every beat of her heart echoing in the eerie silence. "Hello," she called, her voice small, desperate for a reply that wouldn't come. The vastness of the chamber swallowed her words, yet ripples of something gnawed at her, something lurking, watching. Anxiety twisted in her gut, tightening like a vice. She took a step deeper into the uncharted expanse, the ground firm yet unreal beneath her feet. Memories flickered in her mind, disjointed and blurry, like old film clips skipping frames. An echo of laughter. A flash of light. But soon, the smiles darkened, twisting into grotesque masks that transformed joy into torment. Jenna gasped, the memories unfurling like a well-worn nightmare. "Stop," she whispered, pressing her hands to her temples as if blocking out a perverse symphony of her past. Shadows darted around her, a flurry of dark figures that pulled back just out of reach, teasing yet lurking with menace. Then, a voice broke through the unmistakable tone of Tommy, thick with fear. "Jenna, don't, please. You don't know where you are." Her chest constricted, the realization slamming into her as if she were swept by a sudden wave. "Tommy!" she cried, the name a lifeline thrown into the treacherous waters. "Where are you?" Behind the door, he shouted, the sound twisting with urgency, every word a battle against the encroaching darkness. "You have to go back. It's not safe there. You don't belong here." The weight of his fear bore down on her, anchoring her in place. But a surge of defiance sparked within. "Why? What is going to happen? You don't understand." His voice cracked, desperation oozing through. "There is something coming. It feeds on those who lose hope. It's hungry, Jenna. It's hungry for you. A deep rumble echoed behind her, like a massive sigh releasing. Jenna turned, eyes darting back toward the door, the light spilling from it now flickering, struggling against an unseen force. No. The word escaped her lips like a scream, panic seizing her limbs. I want tea. The shadows danced wildly, swirling with excitement. Jenna's breath quickened as the air sizzled with tension. The light dimmed, threatening to extinguish completely. Her heart pounded violently against her ribcage, desperate to escape the tightening grasp of dread. And then, out of the dark, a shape emerged, a small figure with eyes reflecting an unwavering light. It stepped closer, revealing an impossibly familiar face, twisted by a grim sneer. This figure wasn't just here to witness her torment, it was here to drag her down. Do you wish to save him? It hissed, voice smooth as oil. You can still choose. Another door awaits, a darker path paved with despair, but the chance to reclaim what is lost. Jenna's breath caught. No. She shook her head vigorously, refusing to yield to the wretched serpent of temptation. I want to make that choice again. Oh, my dear, the figure chuckled, low and unsettling, you already have. The choice was made the moment you entered. Tommy is fading. Perhaps you want to see how lost he really is. Panic flooded her. Would she lose him for good? The shadows grew restless, whispering promises of despair, filling her head with visions of twisted realities. But there was a flicker, an urge to fight, to claw her way back to any semblance of hope. With every ounce of willpower, Jenna pivoted on her heels. I will not be your puppet. The figure's laughter twisted into a shriek, a sound that speared through the air. Shadows erupted, swirling as they lunged toward her, hungry and ravenous. Jenna sprinted into the impending darkness, the echoes of Tommy's voice blending with the tempest around her, what awaited her at the epicenter of chaos. Light flickered on her left, a distant hope igniting just as a scream shattered the echoes. Jenna! Her heart raced. Was this a final attempt to save him or another trap? Time stretched, the air charged and electric. She took her next step into the void, hoping for salvation, fearing the deadly claws lurking in the depths. And then, darkness cocooned her again, pulling her in and holding its breath. Would she find what she sought or be consumed forever? Something voracious stirred within the shadows, an unseen horror beckoning, ready to pounce. Jenna felt time fracture around her, the very fabric of reality twisting as the darkness swirled. A cold sweat coated her skin, her pulse roaring in her ears. She could hear her own breath ragged and panicked. Wrapped in shadows, impossible to find solace, she braced herself to face what awaited ahead. Could she even trust her senses anymore? Jenna, run! Tommy's voice surged through the darkness, echoing with desperation, a lifeline promising hope. With renewed purpose, she sprinted deeper into the void, brushing past an assortment of whispers that clawed at her sanity. Each shadow held sinister secrets, but she pushed on, fueled by love and fear. Around her, walls shifted, the darkness rippling. Jenna could feel the walls pressing in, alive and hungry. Jagged whispers tickled her skin, urging her to give in, promising relief from the torment, but Jenna gritted her teeth, fighting the urge to succumb. Not today, she hissed, running faster. In the chaos, her fingers grazed the journal again, and a flicker of certainty sparked inside her. Show me the way. Lead me to the light. As if in response, the journal thrummed, illuminating her path ahead with eerie light. Ahead, a shimmer weak but present pulled her in. It flickered, a beacon in this endless abyss. As she bolted toward it, shadows coiled around her ankles, tugging at her like wraiths seeking to drag her back into despair. But a fire burned within her chest, the love for her brother and the memory of her father, real and cherished. That love was worth fighting for. Tommy! She cried out, desperation flooding her voice. The hard, echoing whisper of the shadows grew softer, as if they were holding their breath, waiting for her next move. Come to me, Jenna. Tommy's voice resonated again, oddly infused with the echoes of laughter and warmth she remembered from better days, the times before despair. I need you. With each step forward, the flickering light grew stronger, illuminating this gargantuan labyrinth that twisted, bending reality. She felt her resolve hardening. Jenna pushed through the enveloping darkness, feeling its grip slip as light washed over her. I won't lose you. She screamed, bursting through the final veil of shadow. Several steps forward, she stood in a strange tableau, a brilliant expanse stretching before her, with doors standing as guardians to her salvation. They emitted a radiant glow, each one was unique. Which one? The question burned in Jenna's mind. With hope igniting her heart, she hesitated, glancing back. Help! I'm in here. Tommy's cry sliced through her thoughts again, rooting her to the spot. She couldn't abandon him, not to the shadows, not to despair. With fearless resolve, Jenna approached the door nearest to her, the journal pulsing violently in her hands as if sensing the life on the other side. She felt it, Tommy's presence thrummed beyond, something alive, vibrant. Wait! Echoed some unfinished thought in the darkness around her. A claw reached out from a shadowy corner, a familiar face twisted with malice, pulsing darkness. You really want to choose that one? What's waiting behind that door is far worse than you can imagine. No. The roar of her defiance shattered the whispering chaos. I'll take my chances. With that, she flung open the door and stepped inside. Warmth enveloped her, bathing her skin as blinding light consumed her vision. For a moment, Jenna felt weightlessness, like floating through a dream, and then she landed softly on plush grass beneath a radiant sky, painted bright blue with billowing cotton clouds. Tommy! She called, fear prickling her skin again. Desperately, she searched the surroundings, feeling a vast expanse of comforting peace and warmth. Tommy! Then she heard it, a joyous laugh radiating like sunlight. Jenna! Heart racing, she dashed toward the sound, stumbling upon a clearing, where her little brother stood bathed in light, his smile bright and full of warmth, unmarred by shadows. You found me. Jenna rushed to him, tears flooding her eyes. I thought I lost you. I thought. I was never lost. You just had to believe, he giggled, a hint of mischief swirling in his voice. Can you still hear them? A chill washed over her as she turned to gaze behind them. The door shimmered, but this time it wasn't a portal to chaos. Something cracked, like a fragile egg breaking apart, and that's when she knew the whispers of the shadows had fallen silent. The void that once threatened her had been defeated, their grasp was no longer a chilling presence, just echoes fading into the breeze. Let us go home, Jenna said, her voice thick with relief. Tommy nodded, grasping her hand tightly. As they walked away, light enveloped them fully, and the memories of despair eddied behind like shadows, sliding into unattainable echoes. Together, they stepped forward, leaving the oppressive darkness behind. They deconquered the nightmare and emerged stronger, and for the first time in a long while, Jenna felt hope blossoming like flowers in spring. This was their rebirth, a sanctuary built upon love, not fear, a true path toward healing. Thank you for watching. You need to subscribe now to make sure you don't miss our next exclusive stories. Smash that like button to feed the algorithm and keep the magic alive. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this impactful video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Each action helps us grow. Only true fans understand how important it is to support the channel.